All right, Krystal, what's on your radar?
Well, I had a chance to sit down yesterday for a virtual interview with one of the political leaders that I admire most, Senator Bernard Sanders. So we had in the home stretch of what to me, and I suspect many of you, is an incredibly depressing campaign season. I wanted to hear from the senator about how he thinks about all of these things, about COVID, about the economic fallout, about millions losing their health care, and how those unfolding catastrophes match up with a cautious Joe Biden, who is a lifelong incrementalist. We're at this strange moment of tension. On the one hand, the issues that Senator Sanders staked his career on have never been more salient, more essential, and frankly, more popular. 63% support Medicare for all, 72% support a $2 trillion stimulus, 73% support free college. And at the same time, after his defeat, the movement to actually gain any of those things feels very much in the wilderness. Joe Biden is likely to become president and quite possibly could romp in an electoral landslide. To interview Senator Sanders was to live in the heartbreak, frankly, of what could have been, where we might have hoped for a campaign that was about more than wearing a mask and not being an asshole, and a potential administration that would understand just how much needs to change for America to have a shot. Senator Sanders himself provided a big dose of that alternative reality, laying out for me what he described as his own 100-day agenda to rival the first 100 days agenda of a Biden administration.
I'm going to lay out a 100-day agenda which speaks to the need to begin the process of moving toward Medicare for all. My legislation, 4-year legislation, first year lower the eligibility age from 65 to 55 and cover all the kids. I'm going to introduce that bill. Immediately, we're going to raise that minimum wage to $15 an hour, equal pay for equal work. Immediately, a massive infrastructure program to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure and create millions of good-paying jobs. Immediately, making it easier for workers to join unions, et cetera, et cetera. So we have got to lay out an agenda that speaks to the struggles and the desperation of working-class Americans, and finally, tell the corporate elite they have had their day, and we are going to stand up and fight for policies that workers desperately need.
And so let me make sure I understand what you're saying here. You're saying, look, the Biden administration, they'll have their 100-day plan, but there's going to be a Bernie Sanders working class 100-day plan as well that you're going to attempt to rally people behind.
You got it.
Got it.
It's exactly what we're going to do.
Now, what will come of that effort? Well, that's the real question, isn't it? You all know that I've been skeptical that the Biden administration will be much moved by the protestations of Bernie Sanders or a few members of the squad, or even complaints from the broader progressive movement writ large. Truth be told, they like the specter of the left's complaints because it gives them a chance to show how moderate they are. All of our hissy fits not only fall on deaf ears, but fall on delighted ears, because they can hold up the Green New Deal and a fracking ban and Medicare for all and our complaints about their administration's inadequacy and say, hey, Lincoln Project Never Trumpers, look how moderate we are. But Senator Sanders left the door open to the one thing that I think could be an actual threat to the Democratic establishment, a primary fight against either Joe or Kamala in 2024. Would you be open to supporting a primary challenge either against him or against Senator Harris in 2024?
Those are great questions, Krystal. I'm prepared to support primary challenges all across this country. To those members of Congress, Democrats, who are not prepared to move toward a progressive agenda, you're damn right I am.
Now, let me say that I have some skepticism that Senator Sanders would actually back a primary challenger there. You note that he said he'd back a challenge to members of Congress, not specifically the president, leaving that all a little unclear. And I'm even more skeptical that many members of Congress would join him in such a thing. Remember, yes, right now, we're supposed to believe that once Trump is gone, all will be well and peace will reign in the kingdom. And then, we are told, we'll be able to criticize Democrats without being labeled treasonous consorts of Russia. But you know, immediately after Biden's elected, the Democratic establishment is going to start ginning up some new existential threat to the nation that requires everyone to keep their mouths shut again and never, ever breathe a word against our sacred and unsullied Democratic Party. So, right now, the abstract idea of backing a primary sometime in the future seems a lot more likely because Carlson Cotton 24 isn't breathing down our necks, but just you wait. However, if there is going to be any actual power leverage on behalf of working people, this would be the way. And it doesn't even require a credible threat of victory in that primary to be effective. These are the same people who melted down over Jill Stein and Susan Sarandon. They freak at even the slightest challenge to their power and supremacy, and they would hate a messy primary fight, laying bare the divisions in the party as Biden-Harris or Harris-whoever heads into their reelect. They demand an anointing and a crowning, not this whole having to pretend they care what voters think thing. And that brings me to the final piece of the Sanders interview that I wanted to highlight, although the whole conversation was really interesting and definitely worth watching through. And that is his view on where we are as a nation and the biggest threat that is actually facing us.
The main point that I would make is that some of my friends in the Democratic establishment are not aware or I think cannot comprehend what some of us have in mind in terms of what will happen after Biden is elected, hopefully after he's elected. And that is, we are not going back to business as usual. There's too much pain out there. There's too much inequality out there. There is too much injustice out there. And here is what I believe from the bottom of my heart. If the Democrats, with the Democratic president, Democratic House, and Democratic Senate, cannot begin to address the real crises facing this country, then the future of this nation will be very, very dismal indeed. The people are giving us an opportunity now, and if we blow it by not being bold and aggressive, the next Trump who comes along will be even worse than this one.
And these are the words that I hope he and everyone else remembers, because Senator Sanders is exactly right. The truth is, while mainstream Democrats are scaring everyone into submission with existential threats, the real nation-ending event will come if we allow our current problems to bubble and fester and ultimately rage out of control. We could yet long for the good old days of Donald Trump's America. It was really interesting sitting down with Senator Sanders and getting some specifics about how he's thinking about his role in the Trump era. This is the first time I've heard him talk about, I'm going to have my own 100 days agenda, and here's how this is all going to go. Progressives missed an opportunity, and Senator Sanders missed an opportunity to actually extract some concessions from Joe Biden this time around, because the calculation was made, Donald Trump's too grave of a threat. We can't even threaten to withhold our votes. We've all got to jump in. And so that opportunity to pressure Biden is gone. It's lost. It's not coming back. The only next opportunity comes in 2024. And do I think they're actually going to follow through with potentially backing a primary challenge? No, I'm not particularly hopeful about that. But that would be the next reasonable expectation of a pressure point. And as I said, I don't even think you'd have to have a challenge that was really likely to succeed, because they're so fragile about any sort of like debate or any sort of messiness or any sort of exterior perception of a divide in the Democratic Party, any sort of threat to their power they freak out about. So to me, if you're actually looking realistically about what is the next pressure point, that's the place.
I think that's right. You know, it's interesting watching these interviews is that Bernie's probably at his best when he's like an analyst and not a politician. Like whenever he's talking about what's actually happening versus, you know, like actually in the realm of politics and power and pushing stuff.
It's true.
He's probably at his best whenever he's like diagnosing what's wrong with the country, where things, you know, are corrupt and not. And yet when I think the problem has always been his follow through. We covered it here extensively.
Sure.
So that's the question, is what does it really manifest itself? I mean, does publishing a 100 days agenda, like, okay, cool, man. Like, you got 2 votes in the Senate. Maybe, if Elizabeth Warren goes along with you.
She's not going to.
You've got like 8, what's the squad plus now going to be in the next Congress? For like 6, 7? So what does that mean?
7.
Probably 7. So squad plus Bernie in the Senate. Okay, we're talking about 8 members of Congress.
Throw Rokon in there for good measure.
Maybe, sometimes, right? Whenever he's not flacking for Biden. So that's like out of 535 members. And I'm just trying to be realistic. So what does that mean? What are you going to push? So what is the benefit that those people have is that they have a huge media platform.
Right.
What are they going to use it towards what end? That's the real ever-present question to me. What do AOC, Ilhan, and them decide to publicly break with Biden on and cause problems for him? Electorally, legislatively, they can't really do that. They don't have votes. But they can cause a big headache in terms of the media. President, you know, this is how it works, is that she can make a comment at a joint press conference or whatever. Reporter, somebody like me would be like, hi, you know, Mr. President, AOC says this. What's your response to that? That's usually the best way in which she and many others could shape the debate.
We saw
that's
this.
That's what I'm really curious
Just
about.
to chime in on that, and now at this point, Ro Khanna is now praising Nancy Pelosi.
That's right.
Back
So-
on the team.
Well,
But
he got smacked in the face.
when he first came out
Yeah.
and was the lonely member of Congress who was like, no, I think we should take the deal. Like, people are hurting. Take the deal that is on the table from Steve Mnuchin. Just that one person plus Andrew Yang was enough for Wolf Blitzer to be able to really effectively challenge Nancy Pelosi and put her in a tough place. Now, look, I mean, obviously, we are not really closer to a deal than we were before, but at least it was an ability to put some pressure on her and a public divide that she clearly did not want and did not like. So that's the question. And you know how this is going to go. I see this in my Twitter timeline all day long. Whenever I say anything critical of Joe Biden, I get, just wait, right? Just hold your fire till November 3rd.
Yeah.
And then progressives can unload and say what they really think about Joe Biden and like push him in all these ways. But you know it's not going to work like that. He's going to get elected. There's going to be a period of like celebration where he hasn't done anything, so there's nothing really to criticize. And then the moment he gets in there, Republicans start acting like assholes and jerks like they always do. Then it's going to be, no, you can't criticize him because you're handing the Republicans a talking point, because you're enabling whoever is cropping on. Tom Cotton's been traveling in New Hampshire. You're helping Tom Cotton. You're helping whoever is next in line. And so this cycle just repeats over and over again. Are there going to be any number of progressive leftist members of Congress who break with that and actually challenge the party? That is the part that very much remains to be seen.
Absolutely.
Next on Rising, still no sign of stimulus relief from Congress as Democrats in the White House failed yet again to reach an agreement, as we were just discussing. Washington Post economics reporter Jeffrey Stein is going to address the stalemate when Rising continues.